Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Shu. I am your host for Going Analog. Now, this is a different format than what you may be used to. We used to do a video show because my wife and I, the co-host Christina Ha, and I are moving to I guess I could say Southern California by the time this airs. We're moving, we're starting a new job for me, and we can't do the video show as you've seen in the past. So, my fellow Going Analog people, Christina, a couple of other people we're going to introduce shortly, we're going to try this new podcast. So, let us know what you think. Please join us on social media, give us feedback, and we hope you like what we're doing. Now, the format of the podcast is going to be something that maybe some of you may remember from my days, anyways, from bitmob.com and VentureBeat/GamesBeat, which is we're going to have 4 people on the show, and each person's going to bring his or her own topic to discuss with the group. Either they're going to it could be anything. It could be about a single game, something that they recently experienced, a show they just attended, but something to do with board gaming. So my topic for this first episode, we just went to Gen Con. This is North America's biggest game show for tabletop gaming. We just got back from a tiring 4 days of nonstop gaming demos, staying up till 3 a.m. It was fantastic. It was awesome, and we have stories to tell. So my topic will be my favorite experiences from Gen Con, and Christina, who's sitting to my left, she's going to join in some of that as well. All right, so let's go around the room and let everyone introduce themselves, as well as this, you're going to say what your topic is. So Christina, why don't you go next?
Yeah, this is Christina, and my topic is going to be talking about some board gaming culture that I noticed at Gen Con. Really was excited by how happy everybody was at Gen Con, but I think there's some problematic ways people talk about gaming that I'd like to talk about.
Do you want to, is there anything else people should know about you? As your very first appearance?
No, she's been on the show before.
I've been on the show before.
Well, I mean, of the podcast. We're all new.
I just play a lot of board games, and I am a private tutor and like teaching math and science and fun things like that.
Nice.
You're also the one responsible for most of our purchases back from Gen Con. She spent a lot of money.
Wow.
You are such mutual enablers, and you're totally in denial.
And you're using your first podcast to publicly shame your wife.
I know, excuse me.
All right.
So yeah, my name is Mike Zipkin. I've been in the video game industry just like these guys for a while. And I was the one that took over shooting and editing duties for the Going Analog video show, starting with the Adrenaline episode. And so now I'm finally in front of the microphone. And so what I wanted to talk about was a new game that's just come out from Z-Man Games called House of Danger. It's like a choose-your-own-adventure type of game. And and I know Shu's played it, and I wanted to talk about it with him as well.
It's literally a choose-your-own-adventure game, right?
Yeah,
based
it's
on the
branded
classic
with
books.
that. Yeah. So it's based on one of the choose-your-own-adventure books, and it's basically like an interactive choose-your-own-adventure game with a dice, and you can keep track of where you died and all that sort of thing. So
Cool. And then Nick.
Hello, I'm Nick Sutner. I've also worked in video games for a long time. I worked with Shu at EGM and 1UP back in the day, and then again at PlayStation years later. So that was fun. It was a fun 10 years or so. And we've all played board games together for a long time. And today I'm going to talk about Oink Games, one of my favorite Japanese game publishers, and also sort of have 2 games of theirs fresh from Gen Con that you guys muled back for me. So thank you for that. Tomato and Flotsam Fight, which are sort of their 2 latest. But I'm just going to talk generally about them, and I know Mike's a big fan too, and there's things to say.
I'm going to go first because Gen Con, again, is fresh on our minds. We just got back. This was early August. We go every year. Christine and I go every year. Nick, you went last year for a day or so. This is North America's biggest game convention in tabletop gaming, that is. There are some video game companies that show up there. We've seen like the digital versions of some of these board game publishers like Asmodee Digital. Then we saw Blizzard was there showing off some game stuff, and they had a store open there as well. But it's mostly tabletop games. And you can go there to either meet up with people, and there's open gaming spaces. Board Game Geek, which is a really big, popular sort of database for board games, they have what's called a hot room, where they have like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games for people to check out and play. But the main appeal for me is the dealer hall. This is a gigantic hall. And if people out there have been to shows like a PAX or an E3, this is board game industry's E3, and you just go down rows and rows and rows and acres of board game publishers, indie, large publishers, all sorts in between, just showing off their wares, and you could buy artwork, you could buy dice, a million dice vendors, it seems. You could demo indie games, you could just try something out, you could buy games that haven't been released yet. We came back with probably a half a dozen games that won't be out for the next 2 months yet, because they rush special orders out to get them out to Gen Con before they even hit stores.
And like E3 too, I think it's interesting that it's not like this is a show that just cropped up with board gaming becoming popular in the last 10 years. This has been around quite a bit longer than that, just like E3. So it started as a much more niche thing, is my understanding. And now with sort of the rise of board games being, I don't know what they are, which we should talk about separately sometime, now Gen Con is becoming more and more of a known quantity.
Yeah.
I'm imagining for a long time it was just like, I don't know, I couldn't even, what was Gen Con 15 years ago? Like giant war games? Like what?
Mostly D&D is from what I've heard.
There's a lot of role-playing games back in the day, war games back in the day. Now it's definitely shifted to board games, which is what's really popular now, and that's the industry that's currently exploding. So when you go through, but definitely, depending on where you go in the show, like we can only experience probably 60-70% of it if we pack every minute in. One time when we were walking back to our hotel, we decided to take another route upstairs, and we walked into this gigantic Pathfinder Society room, which was it's like,
Was it like Eyes Wide Shut? You all had masks.
Way to paint that picture.
People getting funky on
less
those tables.
sexy,
Okay.
less like
A little bit less sexy.
Only slightly. Just
just
like,
slightly.
just like a
lot more facial
million
hair.
banquet, just giant banquet hall full of these banquet style tables with people playing Pathfinder or Starfinder, the two big RPGs from Paizo. But it was humongous. I'm like, I had no idea this room was even up here, because I don't play a lot of those kind of games actively. But yeah, there's different there's panels, and there's places for people to learn how to paint miniatures. So it's this kind of world, and it's super awesome. But the big part of it is the board game stuff, right? So my favorite, just real quickly, I think my top 2 favorite games from the show, my top 3, I would say, number 3 is probably, and I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, Coimbra.
Coin bra.
It's a city in Portugal. That's number 3 for me. That was like it's a Euro style game, which means it's like, okay, you have to put you put a dice here, which means it gives you a card here, which gives you some resources, and you can trade these things. I don't have time to I don't want to get into explaining what it is exactly, but these Euro style games are typically very dry looking, very long. Maybe a good game like Caverna or Puerto Rico, a classic like Puerto Rico, or
Is this like worker placement? Like what's the high level?
it's
genre?
dice placement. Like
Okay.
you roll
Dice
a bunch of dice,
drafting.
you draft some dice, and then you place them into the spots you want. And the value of the die will determine the order in which you get to pick from that area that you place the dice in. Like maybe there's several.
Little Castles of Burgundy, little Alien Frontiers, that sort of thing.
It's not in like any of those games. It kind of does a little bit of its own thing. It's closer to a game called Orleans, I would say, from TMG, where there's like several layers. It just depends on when you get to a spot. It matters like the order in which it activates. The number of the die will determine the cost of what you're paying to recruit that person. But then you could build a cool engine. Like, okay, these things are now going to provide me resources every round, or this is going to provide me points every round, or this will let me travel. There's a little map where you can move your little guy around the map to pick up additional resources and points. So I could look at individual parts of this game and say none of those are original, but they kind of package together, everything together.
Is it from someone notable?
Plan B Games.
I mean, the designer.
Oh shoot!
It's not like someone who's done a bunch of stuff before that we would know about.
I
want to
think
say it's like Inca Brand, Marcus and Inca Brand, but I don't know
yeah,
for
and
sure.
because
okay,
we're all
well-
wired in here to do
but-
this podcast. I can't look around the corner. We actually have it right there.
That'll
but-
be the upside, starting with episode 2, when we move to doing this remotely, is that we'll have research machines very handy.
We'll be at our computers. Yeah.
What I
I'll hear
liked about
clacking
Coimbra
keyboards.
was the dice that you choose to also have multiple purposes in the game. It's not even just purchasing the card, but also the color moves you up a track. So there's a lot of layers to it, it seems. Yeah.
But it moved really quickly. It seems like it's not. We only played 1 out of 4 rounds, but that went by really quickly. As soon as the guy was finished demoing, it's someone who follows us on Twitter, actually. Hi, Matt. He did a fantastic job, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to buy this game just as soon as he was done talking before we even touched anything. Awesome
you
game.
put your fingers up against the bed, like you just like shushed him.
Yeah.
No more. You say no more.
Here's my money. Take it.
Real quick, my number 2 game was Christina help me, from Antoine
one?
Bauza and Eric Lang from CMON.
Oh, that's Victorian Masterminds.
Victorian Masterminds. Yeah. This game is due out in November. It's another one where you might look at it. It's a Euro style game, which means typically you're not going to see spaceships or swords or dragons on these kind of games, right? Like this game is it's a steampunk era game where you're going in and activating these agents and using them to get you parts to build a giant machine, a steampunk style machine, right? Like I think someone's building a mechanized spider.
Not a giant zeppelin.
You had a giant zeppelin.
Is it like Wild Wild West?
Huh? No,
It's starting to sound like it.
it's like Victorian England. I'm not sure where that took place,
Well,
right?
it's different. No,
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's actually a very hard Euro. But it's definitely very colorful, and it reminded me a bit of Oceanos, in how you build up part of your master vehicle thing, and it gives you powers along the way.
Yeah.
The interesting mechanic I thought was when you place your cog, you have different henchmen on these cogs, and they can affect other people when they try to use the same space. So you can completely sabotage a player. You can plan accordingly and try to activate at different times to maximize your turn. It was really interesting, the interaction there.
But by the way, I hate that from working in video games. When I hear the word cog, the first thing I think of is cost of goods. It's like a retail term, which I don't even work on retail.
It's actually a plastic cog.
You're one of the few people I think that would make that connection.
I don't know. I bet a lot of people listening, if they're you go. I guess you didn't work as long at the publisher, or a console.
No. Yeah, so I was drawn to, because there's these little buildings, like your character could go in and steal these buildings, which will give you more resources and bonuses. They're little 3D miniature buildings that look really awesome. And then
Is there like an area control part of this, or
not
is it just
not really. No, it's a worker placement where placing these cogs, these agents on a board, in what order you put them in and how they're flipped over. All that's the main part of this game.
And for some background context, you said it was from Eric Lang and Antoine Bauza.
Yeah. So
Eric Lang who made Blood Rage, which we played earlier today, and then went on to make Rising Sun, which is also fantastic. That are also like area control, basically, right?
right?
those
That's what I
two-
was asking.
those two are, yeah.
Because like I'm not a huge fan of Eric Lang, as everybody likes to make fun of me for.
yeah.
You don't like Rising Sun?
I've not played Rising Sun, so I can't really
What?
speak to that.
Mike,
but
this is-
I played Blood Rage, and it really kind of it just got to me. I didn't love it. I don't like area control and take that. Like you put those two together, and I just
What was the other part?
area control
And what?
Plus,
and
take that.
Oh, take that.
Like when you can wipe other people out and really make them like set them back, it just really frustrates me.
This game won't do that.
And then the other half of that being Antoine Bauza.
Yeah, so
Seven Wonders.
So Eric Lang's done a million games, right? Like the Zombicide games
Yeah.
and like so much, and he works for this publisher called CMON. Antoine Bauza's famous games like Hanabi and Takanoko and Tokaido and
Seven Wonders, right?
Seven Wonders. Yeah, so like he's one of our favorite
Star-studded
games.
lineup.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when I sat down, I was drawn to the way the game looked and these little miniature houses all over. And then Christina sat down. She was tired. It was our last day. And she looked at the box and then she waves me over. She's like, shoot, this is from Antoine Bauza and Eric Lang. And I was like, all right, we knew we had to wait. So we had to wait for someone to finish lunch before they could give us a demo.
A lot of those guys come there, right?
Yeah. You see those guys all the time at these conventions.
And they're not
famous.
like, are they sort of like, are they like big gaming celebrities? Like, is that a thing yet, or are they still pretty accessible?
They're recognizable for sure. Like people stop them.
But I
if
mean,
they
are there like crowds
recognize
around them always?
Sometimes, like when I interviewed Eric Lang last year, you could see this on goinganalogshow.com, where we talked about their video game influences. I
I heard
Eric,
that went up like just like that after last year. It was like you had stepped off the plane and that article was up.
yeah, something like that. But yeah, Eric, people kept stopping him for autographs and stuff. But the cool thing, one of the cool things I like about Gen Con, by the way, is these people are very accessible. Like they're not shielded by layers of PR, and you have to prove yourself as like a journalist and have numbers and analytics for you to get even 5 minutes with somebody. A lot, even the big name game developers.
You just find the hotel they're staying at and wait in the lobby and just tackle them when they walk in.
Yeah, and they'll give you an interview just like that. All right, real quickly, I know I'm running long. My number one thing is currently, depending on when we put
sorry,
this
we're out of time.
Sabotage by Fowers Games. Tim Fowers is the game designer here. This, we played an early prototype. It's not finished yet, but his pitch for this is basically Spies versus Mercs, which is the multiplayer mode of Splinter Cell. that is one of my favorite things of all time.
Which you gave, I believe, a 10 to back in the day at EGM? 9.5 or a 10?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't doubt it because
That was from Pandora Tomorrow. That was like, right?
well, Pandora Tomorrow and almost every Splinter Cell since then had a mode version of this
Right.
mode.
But that was the very first incarnation.
Yeah, Pandora Tomorrow, the second Splinter Cell, was the first occurrence of this. So I talked to him and did a quick interview with him as well.
What else has he done for context?
Oh, on the board game side,
Yeah.
he's done games like Fugitive, which you are more familiar with than I am. Burgle Brothers, which is cooperative, where you're these burglars coming into a 3-story building and you're navigating through different traps and alarms and security guards trying to steal. Paperback, which is like a card game where you're forming words with the letters on your cards. Hardback, which is a sequel to that. So he does these really pretty, like this almost retro style, cartoony retro art style look on his games, and they're all packaged very nicely. But anyways, he showed us an early prototype of this game. It's 2-on-2. Our friend Joe and I were the
Bumbling spies.
bumbling
So
spies.
it's always teams.
Always teams. And then Christina here and our friend Mike were playing the villains who are trying to stop us. And then so you do a little bit of this pre-programmed movement around this grid. You're trying to, like the spies were like, all right, I'm going to go and hack the station, steal a cube, and then get out of there before anyone could find me. The villains, meanwhile, are like shining flashlights down hallways trying to find the guys. They might zap a space where they think the spies are hiding. And then there's all of this like deduction of like, where's everyone at? Who's hacking what? Where are the people located? And people are making quick movements or causing distractions. It was super tense. Like the whole time, like Joe and I are whispering to each other, plotting. I'm like, one time I remember I was trying to cause a distraction so Joe can go up and hack the computer, and I just got giddy, like genuinely giddy, because I'm like, this is exactly what I did in Splinter Cell multiplayer. Like people would cause distractions to try to get the like setting off alarms in one side of the map so your teammate spy can hack a computer or console at another part of the map.
Is this entirely within the bounds of the game, or are you talking about causing like a real life distraction?
Oh yeah,
So that you could it's like whisper a plan or something.
Oh no.
No.
It's in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I'll cause movement, and then the mercenaries or the villains will see like, oh, okay, he's in this sector, and then I'm hoping to draw them to me. But Christina, like after a while, she's like, he's just being stupid because I'm just moving back and forth between two squares. But anyways, it's awesome. It's currently on Kickstarter. I think it'll still be on Kickstarter by the time this episode comes out. But that's Sabotage. I just immediately after that, I went and backed it without watching the video.
And when I saw your Facebook comment, I was like, damn it, Shu, like I have to go out and buy this right now. Like I looked at the prototype that they had on Kickstarter and I was like not impressed. And I didn't like what I saw from Getaway Driver, the same company, Tim Fowers. And I was just, I saw what you said about it and I was like, damn it, now I have to go out and buy this. And it's like $60, but it does sound fun. And since you're moving away, I think I have to kind of buy it.
I do think it's interesting because playing the villains, I had a very different feel for it. And for me, it was more like playing a more interesting battleship because we were deducing where they were rather than trying to hide from them, obviously because we were the villains and hunting them down. But for me, that was super fun. They have to give specific kinds of information as they move around. So you're taking that information, sort of triangulating on your map, talking with your partner to figure out, okay, if I go here and you go there, we can cover these two areas when we shoot our tasers, and we just murder them. It was amazing. So
do you guys win?
Oh, we totally won.
Tim did say, he said like Christina was probably one of the quickest and best players that he's seen because she was able to do things so quickly. But one last thing about this game too is there's different characters that you could pick from. So you eventually through the course of one session, you start upgrading your character in their tech trees. So eventually you'll get cheat sheets. So like if I'm playing against you, Nick, you'll see what powers I could potentially get, but you won't know which way I'm going on the tech tree. So I might say like, oh, now I've developed tunneling and I could go through walls.
Or I could develop video gamey.
Yeah, it's very video gamey. So, but it was really awesome.
And he also used to be a video game designer, right?
He worked in the video game industry. I'm not sure. I know he was at Amazon Game Studios, okay. But I'm not sure exactly if he was a game designer or not. Okay. So, yeah. Okay, so that's the stuff I love from Gen Con. So, Christina, why don't you kick us off with your topic, or continue with your topic?
Yeah. So I really love Gen Con because it is super overwhelming and huge, but it's a huge collection of people who just love board gaming. And I feel like it's very approachable in a lot of ways, and there's so many types of games you can go around and see, like everything from party games to card games to deeper strategy games. One thing I noticed though at Gen Con is sometimes I feel there's problems with how certain gamers talk about games to other people. And of course, I've noticed this when I, go on Facebook board game groups and stuff like that. This is always an issue that comes up. Specifically, this I was thinking about this as I was discussing with some people who were watching this demo with me, and they had asked, oh, what are some fun games you've seen? For me, I mentioned this game called Rise of the Tribes, or Rise of the Tribes, something along those lines. It's sort of to me, a medium weight dice placement, civilization growing game. I really liked the mechanics of how this worked. So I mentioned, oh yeah, I really like this demo. I'm looking forward to getting this game. And this person I just met just randomly said, oh, you consider that medium weight? For me, that's sort of more like a really light game, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, did you really need to make that comment? I mean, here I am very excited about a game. Just because your personal scale puts it somewhere differently doesn't seem like it matters to me. I would be happy if you just said, oh, cool, that sounds good. I prefer these kinds of games. I think that's a more constructive way to talk about gaming, and I can see why the approachability of board games can be a problem when people who are enthusiasts sort of, put down other people's interests. Yeah.
I was just to add, and like oftentimes I think even to other enthusiasts, like other people like I played with as well, I think people who tend to be very gaming literate and play a lot of games, they aren't really like making concessions for people who may not play it even as much as they do. Even if like I play a lot of games and I'm playing, I played with people who really want to just sort of like plays through the rules and expect me to like get it and just be like, all right, let's just get up and running because this is stuff you should be able to like understand quickly and just sort of start playing. So I think even within like enthusiast to enthusiast, I think there is like can be an element of the gaming culture that is sort of like, yeah, it's like, oh, I play a lot of games and I know this stuff very well and I'm sort of going to run the show, and that sometimes goes to the people too who want to sort of like try to take your turn for you and all that stuff as well.
Yeah.
We saw that at Gen Con a couple years ago with our friend Stephanie, where Stephanie and I sat down to play a demo of City of Spies, I think, from Stronghold. Is that the right name of the game? Anyone know? City of Spies. Regardless, we sat down with two other random guys, and we all were learning the game for the very first time. One guy just mansplained to Stephanie every turn, like what she should do, right? And I didn't want to come in all white knight, like tell him to stop because she can take care of herself, right? And I'm like, if she's not gonna say anything, maybe she's not bothered enough by this. But I noticed he wasn't doing it to me. He wasn't doing it to the other male. He just wanted to just tell her what to do.
And for bonus clarity, she works in the gaming industry and has like co-designed a board game. Like she knows her stuff. But yeah, a lot of it is like sexism.
She did not need that at all.
Yeah.
But just like it was clearly like, the guy was just being sexist and assumed that she wouldn't know what to do or how to play her turns, right? So
yeah, and there's that like penis measurement like sort of game that some like nerds really get into, which is totally like unwelcoming to either anybody new to the hobby or just making new friends with people that you don't know.
It's sort of overcompensating or becoming like a nerd bully. Where like we're all nerds, and it's like you feel like you don't fit in socially or something, and then board gaming becomes your special hobby, but then you become overly precious about it, and you were sort of like a bully about it to other people.
Well, you want people to sort of like look at you as like being like the expert, and you want to show off a little bit, and you're not used to being around other people, especially maybe women, so they can sort of overcompensate in that way too.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective too, like I have a teaching background, and like the worst thing you can say to somebody that you're trying to encourage to get into an interest or an activity is to like say, oh, you don't know that? Like that is not helpful, right? If you, if I talk to somebody and I say I'm into board games, they're like, oh, I like Monopoly. Like maybe inwardly I think, oh my God, there's so many better games out there. But like I would say, oh, that's awesome. Do you like the real estate aspect? Maybe you should play this like really quick game called For Sale, Like that's how you get more people into gaming, which I think Gen Con should be about. Mm-hmm. Not just like circling your wagons and being so insular about like this gaming is for me only. Or like my two friends, whatever.
Yeah, there's just a lot of people that kind of fall into this hobby that I think don't have a lot of like social skills in that way. But yeah, it can happen.
If I ever become so snobby that I start talking like what we're describing here, and I become holier than thou or better than you. You guys, I'll give you permission to just punch me in the penis. No more penis measuring. None of that from me.
It'll just be punched.
Yeah. Only if I get to that
It's
point.
still a clean show as of now.
Yeah.
Well,
Penis punching is fine.
anatomy is safe, isn't it?
It's medical. It's a medical term. Okay.
We're going to be sorted into like medical podcasts on iTunes. Actually, I do have to tag the show, so I can tag it with medical as well.
Great.
All right, Mike, why don't you start us off
You
with
should just
your...
start us off like mise en scène and just go straight for it.
No, I think that would be a little too
Oh,
bizarre.
come on.
So yeah, I recently picked up this game, which is currently the hot product apparently at Gen Con.
So the game you're about to... Yeah, it had a big presence at Gen Con, big crowds playing it, and I know it's been getting a lot of buzz at Target too, because I see people post about it on social media like, oh my god, this game, I want to check it out. And I was like that when our friend Jess showed us. I'm like, oh, I cannot wait to play that.
Yeah, I mean, it's super accessible. So it's the Choose Your Own Adventure House of Danger, which is adapted from a Choose Your Own Adventure novel, which if you haven't, if you didn't grow up in the 80s, yeah, well, what would you call it? Like a book?
Okay. It's a kid's book.
Kid's book. So yeah, it's basically written for young adults or even younger, like 12-year-olds, I think, is kind of where I would peg it. And yeah, when we were growing up in the 80s, like I remember reading these things, and so this brings back a lot of nostalgia. And so to see it as a game and to have a little more agency as to how the book plays out is really interesting. And so basically the game sets you as this psychic detective who's been having nightmares, and you have basically the only pieces you have are a board with a psychic scale that goes 1 to 25, which sort of unlocks more access to parts of the game that you might not have if you aren't high enough level. And then you also have the danger meter, which is also sort of shows you what your save throw is. Basically, you have a d6 that you roll for every encounter that you have to face, and so it could be a fight, it could be you're searching something, and so if you don't roll above a 3 or a 4, then you fail and something might happen to you. So yeah, so Shu thought it would be fun if I actually read through the first chapter, and so I have these cards ready.
The first full chapter?
The first 2 cards. It's like sorry, not the chapters. So the first
that's a full
first
game.
card, yeah. But each card basically ends with a choice at the end of it, and you might pick up clues. But I don't know. I guess I could give this a go.
I meant in media res, by the way, not mise en scène, but please go for it.
He's been thinking about this
So,
all
I
the
wrote it
time.
down.
And just for listener warning, we're not going to spoil much here. We're just going to read one excerpt, and Mike's going to leave us with a choice, but we're not going to talk about what happens after this.
Okay.
This
Well,
is just a
we
teaser.
can briefly discuss like what our experiences were. Okay. So, The Grounds, Chapter 1. It's a Tuesday morning in late June, and you wake up in a cold sweat. The nightmares came again last night. Even though you are an aspiring detective and psychic investigator, you haven't been able to make sense of the haunting dreams you've had these past few weeks. In your dreams, you keep seeing the same spooky house. You're still shivering under the covers when you hear the phone ring downstairs in your basement, where you've your combination of office and research laboratory. You dash down the lab to the lab to answer it. I need, a weak voice says when you pick up the receiver. I need your help. You hear a loud click and the phone goes dead. So, from right there, we could stop. Thank you.
That was excellent. Like the
I get
voice.
to read to my daughter a lot, so she's 2, so I do enjoy reading out loud to her. But yeah, so my wife and I were playing this, and she doesn't game that much. She does play from time to time, but I think she appreciates a good co-op game every now and then. And I think we both kind of realized that the writing is definitely more for the young reader audience. I sort of forgot that was the case before coming to this game, but so it was kind of it's definitely corny writing, and it's campy and fun to read, but it can feel a little below my age. But what do you think?
It seems in the spirit. I mean, just from what you read right now, it seems in the spirit of it, though. It doesn't seem like.
Yeah.
I think it gets worse. I think it's fine. It's serviceable. It does the job. And Mike didn't really read to the game part because eventually you face choices like you did in the books, where those novels, where you have to do you want to go down this hallway or do you want to talk to this person, with a little bit more game element. But I think for me it was like when we hit chapter 3, I'm like, I think that maybe the writer's getting tired. He's just taking shortcuts, but vocabulary just worsens. But not bad. It was still it's not about reading a fine novel.
Sure. Well,
But-
that's why I don't know if that. I mean, I haven't gotten as far as chapter 3, sadly, so I can't speak to that. But I would say that the writing was of lower standard than I was hoping. But then again, like, I'm not the target age for the audience for this game. So, but I think when my kids are old enough, I would love to show this to them.
Well, it seems though like I mean, I haven't played this, so I'm just like based on the presentation of it and the concept and everything. It also seems like it is sort of a nostalgia thing
Definitely.
too, and it looks great by the way. All the graphic design and everything is really on.
Yeah,
like,
the
spot on.
color and everything else is very retro.
Yeah,
And
and just the front art and everything you want to play it. And as Shu knows, I'm a big snob about just like aesthetic and
Well,
art
the
direction.
boxes, like, they make it look like an old Choose Your Own Adventure book, but they updated the graphics. Like, that's not the same art from the original House of Danger book, but
right. It's just like the same color scheme, and they use a lot of the same like sort of 70s era fonts, so it looks very much like of its time. And that's actually the same font that Stranger Things uses, by the way.
It looks like something you would find in like if you like rented like a log cabin, and this would like that's just a game that like lives there.
Yeah, if I were like 12 years old and I had this game to play, I think it would have really excited me.
I think they're smart because you could tell the packaging was designed to capture us, the older crowd who grew up with these books, who might buy them for their kids. Right? Like a kid now might not. I don't think. I don't know if Choose Your Own Adventure books are still around.
I don't think so, but it definitely is reintroducing the series to a
Yeah.
whole new audience.
Is Fortnite in there somewhere?
For
Because if not, I don't think they're playing it.
I know, right?
Is the entire experience of Fortnite in that box?
But yeah, the cool thing is you can pick up pieces of equipment that can help you aid in your rolls. And so you start the game with, a bottle of water that you can discard at any time to lower your danger meter, which is your probability of success. And you have a pocket knife for helping you with a combat roll.
For opening the water.
Yeah. But there's a funny situation where we found I'll just spoil one item that's in the game. It's not a real big spoiler, but we found a pair of binoculars. And so later on, like, that could help you with searching. And so I was using it to help me search through a cupboard. I was like, this doesn't make any thematic sense, but
How does this compare to something like Tales of Arabian Nights or Sherlock Holmes Consulting Adventure?
Consulting Detective.
Consulting Detective, which I've only played one case of that. I played a lot of Tales of Arabian Nights, and both those games I love. So how it's similar to, like, what makes this different in a Choose Your Own Adventure sense? Is it the fact that it's like a linear story I guess Sherlock Holmes is, that you're progressing through, or like...
It's very linear for sure, and there's a lot of dead ends. And yeah, I mean, I haven't really played either of those other games, but
Or time stories, for that matter.
I haven't played Time Stories.
Time
You haven't played
Stories.
Tales of Arabian Nights?
I haven't.
Ooh, we got to do a session of that.
I would be
It's
down
so
for that.
good.
So for Tales of Arabian Nights and Time Stories, the story develops more organically, and you have multiple choices, and you can visit different areas, for example. And in a lot of the story, you kind of create, especially Tales of Arabian Nights, where the funniness comes in these sort of this matrix of all these little storytelling bits that kind of come together to, like, turn Christina into a donkey and she's thrown into a jail, or
Made it really hard to charm my way out, by the way.
yeah, or you went crazy in one game and then the other players got to control you.
By the way, if you haven't watched Shut Up and Sit Down's like review of that game, that's what sold me on it originally, and it's an awesome review, and it will sell you on it. So I highly recommend it to go watch that.
Oh, I love the game, but you introduced it to us, Nick. But where the Choose Your Own Adventure game is more, if you've read the books at all, it's almost exactly like that, because you'll come to a situation like, do you want to do A, B, or C? And then you pick A, and then you go see what happens there. And then some of it might be, whoops, you messed up, and then now you're dead, and then reset back to a certain point. Or you might, like, it might be a red herring, and it doesn't do anything. Or you get the binoculars, which helps with cupboard searching, apparently. Things like that. But the one thing, so when I read those books as a kid, I would bookmark every branch and explore. I'd read it like I'd play a video game, which is which choice will lead to the end the quickest. Like, will this kill me? Then I'll read that one first. I'll try to read that one first because I want to explore every single branch. By the end, I've read every page, which is not the fun way to do it, but I just couldn't help myself. In this game, they kind of let you do that because when you finish a chapter, it's like, do you want to? They give you opportunities to explore certain rooms that you might not have explored before, which is kind of cool because it's like talking to people like me who are like, oh, we missed all these things, or we didn't go to these rooms or explore these areas, and it gives you a chance to catch up there. But at the same time, like, they're basically that's like, you're gonna exhaust if you do all those things, you're gonna have no reason to ever play this game again. So there's not a lot of replayability there necessarily.
Yeah, and it's also really tough to sort of, at least I found it, that it was really hard to get our psychic meter up, like at to any helpful level. There's levels 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we kept bouncing back down and down. And it wasn't because we were doing terribly. We did really well, I felt like, but it just seemed like no matter what we did, we just didn't know exactly which chapter or which direction to head in to really improve that. And so we ended up dying just randomly, like thinking, oh, this is a great path. Seems really cool. And then we're dead, which is like the book. But the book didn't have a psychic meter, and the psychic meter kind of can help you unlock a lot more stuff. So I think the psychic meter is there to help you with replayability. Yeah. So that you have more, once you have a knowledge of what, kind of like Dark Souls where you die, you have more knowledge of where not to go the second time.
That's funny because we had a different experience there. Like our psychic meter was constantly really high.
Interesting.
And we only died once in chapters 1 through 5 when I played with Joe and Jess. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe because we had more players, maybe it was
they were much better psychics.
Yeah.
This sounds more like Time Stories where you're hitting dead ends and you have fail states and you're replaying it with new knowledge. Versus the ones I mentioned, Tales of Arabian Nights and Sherlock Holmes. Those are more like there aren't really fail states. It's more just about like, might be dead ends, but that just does give you more information. You keep going. You don't really die. You just sort of deal with the consequences and keep moving.
But yeah, overall, I think it's great. I think I recommend it to anybody with kids, but anybody expecting it to have like a Sherlock Holmes consulting detective level of challenges, you're going to be disappointed.
And then how about your topic, Nick?
All right. So Oink Games is my topic, which is a publisher from Japan that have about 30 games out now and a few iOS games as well, sort of simpler puzzle games. But I was introduced to them, I think, by a Fake Artist Goes to New York first, which maybe you introduced me to.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think we introduced that first game.
And do you remember how you were introduced to that?
Your doppelganger, Chris Bryan.
Oh, right.
Our friend Chris Bryan, who does the news for Bored with Life, and these skits. A few Gen Cons ago, he showed me a Fake Artist Goes to New York. He's like, look at this game. Look how pretty it is. It's like so minimalistic. It's a tiny box that fits in the palm of your hand. And then we played that game and we bought that and we brought that back. And then, and why we call him your doppelganger is, and we've told Chris this too, that you two are the same people. Like one day you're gonna meet and you're gonna shake hands and you're gonna
fight to the death.
It's gonna be that time cop
touch,
blob,
and then you're just gonna become a big time cop blob.
Yep. So it's gonna be awesome. I can't wait to see that.
Or their beards will just merge. I don't know.
Oh God.
Something like that.
Anyways, so that was the first one, which is a really fun, like drawing, sort of very simple social game for like up to 10 people. And it is just a very attractive box, and it's like minimalist design. It all fits in there really well. It's pretty easy to learn. It just sort of like, even from seeing it on a shelf, you're like, oh, what is this? It's intriguing. It's something different. And it's like this sort of aesthetic and design sensibility is true of a lot of other Japanese games from other publishers, but also just Japanese games in general, like video games, and just Japanese culture of sort of really valuing aesthetic and not having things be like often like overly decorative. It's like the whole wabi-sabi thing and bonsais and like all these Japanese cultural artifacts. I know Mike is a big fan of Japanese culture as well. And these are just sort of like elements that once you start appreciating any entertainment, you really start to tell a part of that sensibility. And I actually wrote a whole book about some of this stuff. I wrote a book about Shadow of the Colossus, the video game, which is really about sort of subtractive design and minimalism and what leads to this. And I think part of the Oink thing is a design constraint. Like it has to fit in this tiny box, which is like, I don't know, like 5 inches across, or 5 inches tall by 2 inches across by 1.5 inches deep or something, and they're all the same almost, fitting into that, and so you have to fit all the components in there. The rules have to be like basically on 2 sides of a piece of paper, if not one side, because sometimes they're in a lot of languages.
I don't know. Yeah, is it? I mean, it's like the portability factor you think that they went for, or?
Well, I think, a lot of it comes in Japan, like space is at a premium, and people don't have like room like this in a home for like, shelves full of big box games. So, and yeah, portability I think is a big deal. And a lot of them actually are up to like 6 players at least, which is really cool. So you could bring it. I brought them out to bars and restaurants or whatever.
Yeah, for anybody who's listening to this who's never heard of this company, Fake Artist Goes to New York is like easy. Like that's an easy buy.
Yeah, and so that actually, and Deep Sea Adventure, which is another one that's like a little weirder to learn, but is a really funny, push your luck in that's like brutally difficult. But those two now are a lot more widely available. I think they're at Barnes & Noble and maybe like Walmart and Target or something. They sort of redid the front of the box a little bit, just made the font bolder so it stands out even more. So those two are very broadly available. And then a bunch of the other ones you can find in board game stores and on Amazon, and then a bunch of the other ones are still only in Japan. Or some, like I have here, these 2 new ones that they just had a launch party for in Tokyo a couple weeks ago, and now they brought some copies apparently to Gen Con. I don't think you can really buy them widely yet, so I'll talk about those in a second. But they're just like a really wide range of designs, and I've found them. I mean, I haven't even played all of them. I own most of the ones that are like reasonably attainable, and they're sort of all over the place. But a lot of them are, they're like 20 to 40 minutes, so they never get really too long or too complex. And even 40 minutes feels like maybe none are quite that long. And
I was curious, like, what are some of the ones that you go back to the most?
Troll I like a lot, which I don't know, seems to come and go. Like sometimes it's $150 on online, and then sometimes I'll see a bunch of copies in a store. That's about like stealing diamonds from a sleeping troll, and it's just sort of a simple like numbers game of trying to like play cards in a certain order and steal the right amount of diamonds and be cognizant of what your opponents are playing. So a lot of it is just sort of like simple but requires some observation, and I like the theme of that a lot. Again, all the components of course are really beautiful always. Maskman is like a luchador wrestling game, which is really fun. A lot of them, I will say, can be a little tough to like learn by yourself just reading the rules once. The translation is pretty good, but it's imperfect, and Maskman is one where it's like it's really hard to get your mind around conceptually. But if you often go watch like a video, like a Dice Tower video or something of these things, it's a lot easier to just watch someone teach it to you than trying to learn it from the rules. And others I go back to.
Startups,
I'm looking
right?
at the list now. I actually haven't played Startups.
Oh, I thought you said that was one of your favorites. Sorry.
No, I haven't played it. Kobayakawa I like a lot too. Super simple. Comes with if you can get it. I don't know if they actually have it in the US. They have it under a different name actually by Aiello, I think. But the original Oink review has these really beautiful heavy coins, and it's again a very simple game of just like, do you want to push your luck with this number or take this number?
To the dungeon. Was that it?
No. Kobayakawa.
Kobayakawa.
Yeah.
Is the one he's
I
saying.
played Stephen Tan's version.
Yeah, the one. Yeah, it's basically like poker meets solitaire in like with pretty metal coins, but the yellow version does not have metal coins. It has these cardboard coins, and I spent like $30 more importing some metal coins, and that was probably.
And another metal coin one that came out really recently is called Moneybags, which comes with like basically the box is like, and this is sort of an extra tall one. It sort of doesn't fit the mold, but it comes with a bunch of like really beautiful like gold coins and a bunch of little burlap bags. And really, the game is like one sort of like gang boss distributes the coins in everyone else's bags, and on each person's turn, you pick someone else's bag to steal any amount of coins from. And if after you've stolen, they think you then have more coins than you can accuse them, and they might have to give you all their coins. So it's just this really weird, simple, like not quite social manipulation, but it's just about guessing and try to steal just the right amount, but not too much. So little ideas like that they sort of take further than, and even the one we played just now. So actually, I'll segue into the Tomato, which is a game that's about sort of based on the like funny sounding syllables in the word tomato or tomato, because it wants you to pronounce it in Japanese pronunciation, which you'd probably say better.
Tomato.
Well,
yeah, it's funny because I was telling Shu like the word to is also and. So if you say tomato, nice. means it like stretches the sentence on.
And this game is just about laying the different syllables in different orders. There's different cards that say like toma or ma or to or tomato, and there's one potato. And it's just about like flipping them over, and then the person next to you has to like read this quickly and not mess it up, and then it sort of keeps building and gets more ridiculous. And I really enjoyed it from what we played just now before we were recording. And it's another thing where it's like it's a really simple concept. It's pretty like goofy, but it's also got sort of a clever element of like collecting syllables to like collect all the syllables of a tomato card at the end to like have the most of. So they find a lot of ways to make these otherwise pretty casual social games like competitive still, which I appreciate as well, because I don't like social games that are sort of too casual and too open-ended, because I am.
And that was definitely more on the lighter end of their scale. Like you were saying, Shu, like it's a definite drinking game.
It needs to be a drinking game. I know you don't drink, Nick, but I want to play that.
That's
game.
why it's not fair
for one game.
If we played against you and we were all drinking, you would just wipe the floor with us.
But yeah, I found it really enjoyable. And then the other one, fresh from Gen Con, is Flotsam Fight, which is funny because thematically this sort of feels like so Deep Sea Adventure, the other game I mentioned of theirs, is all about like diving and bringing back as much treasure as you can to the boat. Whereas this game is about like you're sailing home and there's bad weather and you're like, the boat spills over. I don't know if they're literally connected, but it's sort of thematically following, and you're sort of like trying to gather the treasure and get them back on lifeboats. And Shu and I played this with some other friends earlier today. And I thought that was pretty cool too. It felt a bit like, what was I comparing it to earlier? A little bit like the game sort of, where you're trying to escalate in certain amounts and not like have room to play your cards because they're all numbered. You could play into different lifeboats. Also, a little bit of a game like Lost Cities, which is my favorite game. As an aside, it's a game where like you never really want to play anything in your hand, so like everything is like oh, I hope that this goes well. But again, it was like simple and a little mathy and pretty clever. Or not mathy, but like trying to track all the numbers. What did you think about you?
The Flotsam one I was okay on. I thought that was fine. I started to understand the strategy better after a game or two. But the tomato is it tomato mato
Tomato. And it was funny because I kept on like, so Oink Games, like they tweet in English sometimes, but they tweet in Japanese a lot too. And I always do use like the translate tweet button, and it kept on calling it Tomato Matrix. So I just got used to a Tomato Matrix, and I even almost sent it to you on my Gen Con request list as like, please get the Tomato Matrix. So it's a good thing I didn't say that. Anyways, they're just really interesting. Most of the games are designed by the same guy, Jun Sasaki, which I think he's also just runs the company too. I don't know if he's the owner, but it's actually hard to find a lot of information about them. I want to see if I can hang out with them when I go to Japan in September.
Well, you're going to Japan, and you're just going to stand outside their door and wait until somebody goes in and like,
yeah.
Oh, excuse me.
Asuma-san. Anyway, so most of the design by the same guys. These actually are designed by, I think, two people who are new to their series. Flotsam Fight is Tomoyuki Maruta, and Tomatomato is Taisei Kato. And then they also take a couple of Reina Knizia games and sort of repackage them as Oink Games, like Modern Art, probably most famously, which is also just a really beautiful version. It's like the most beautiful by far.
It is
version
definitely
of
the
Modern Art.
best version.
Yeah, and a double wide box.
Well, and they also did Stamps, which is a
which is like
re-implementation of the same game, but is impossible to find and is also beautiful.
But yeah, I would just, if you're not familiar with them, I would go to their website and check some stuff out. I remember a couple of years ago, I would ask every board game shop I went into, like, do you have any Oink games? And no one even had really heard of Oink ever, which was surprising. And now finally some are like coming, I think, through like international distribution partners, so they're a little easier to find now. But
yeah, you said like some of them are at Target now.
I think Barnes and Noble and maybe Target. I know Target's like really making a big push on games, but specifically Fake Artist and Deep Sea Adventure are now like way easier to get. Just those two. I don't know if there's going to be more, but
yeah, if I could recommend two games for people to check out, would be A Fake Artist Goes to New York and Insider. And the real quick pitches are Fake Artist Goes to New York. Everyone has different colored pens. They're adding one part. They're all drawing one thing together, but one person doesn't know what they're drawing, and everyone's trying to figure out who that person is, and that person's trying to blend in and act like they know what they're drawing.
It's really funny in like a Pictionary way, or Exquisite Corpse, where as soon as you're done, you're like, oh, I thought you meant this.
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah.
because everyone else wants to be vague and not let the person know, the fake artist know what they're drawing, right? So that's really fun. And Insider is like 20 questions, but one person's the insider who secretly is the insider trying to help the team, but not be too obvious about it because they can't be discovered. Otherwise,
it's a little bit like Weird Words if you play.
Well, Weird Words stole the idea and combined it with Werewolf, right?
Oh yeah, actually that was a thing.
Yeah.
And then they put out like Oink Games put out a statement, and it was the whole thing for a minute.
I actually like Weird Words better, but
I like
Insider
Weird
was
Words
the first
better,
one to do
technically
it.
better. But Oink Games, it's so portable and they're so pretty that it's like,
and they're all like $20 to $25
Yeah.
when you're buying them as a reasonable person that isn't gonna shell out a ton of money for hard to find ones like us.
Yeah, Fake Artist is fantastic.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it.
cool. And if you're watching or if you're listening to us on YouTube, Mike will probably put up a graphic of some of the Oink games so you can kind of see
Pressure's
what
on.
they look at.
Thanks. Yeah, keep mentioning game titles so I can just keep looking for those images.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you guys all for coming today and for recording this first podcast.
We have an
Going
email
Down.
address now.
Oh, yeah.
We do.
You do want people to email us, right? What is it?
Letters.
You sound so
like-
upset about
Well,
that.
you made it, I think, right? It's letters@goinganalogshow.com.
Yeah, letters at goinganalogshow.com. If you really want to email
Well,
us.
in future, we'll give you more like topical, contextual reasons to email us to contribute to the conversation. If you have thoughts on any of this week's topics, we'd love to hear. Maybe we'll read a couple next time. But otherwise, Shu's just rolling his eyes. I'll check the email.
I don't want
Shu.
more mail. That's the problem. Social media. I like social media, so I'm like,
Sure, or tweet it. What are all our accounts? Just at Going Analog Show.
Going Analog Show on Twitter and Facebook. Those are the best ways to kind of stay in touch with us, see what we're up to. We have some other content that's not just this podcast. There's some awesome video shows we did put out, and we'll revisit doing video in the future once we get settled down in our new home.
And of course, like this and subscribe, please. No, but for real, like if you have other Word Gaming friends, please tell them about the show. Please subscribe. I don't exactly know. I haven't done a podcast in a little while, but I don't know how iTunes algorithms work. But I know if a bunch of people check it out week
Yeah.
one, it's going to rise up the charts. So.
And if you want to see the video version of this show, definitely subscribe to the Facebook channel, Facebook and YouTube, where I'll be making a video version of this to go up alongside it.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate the support. Give us feedback if you have topic suggestions for us.
If you don't want any more shoe, no more shoe. Done.
Yeah. If you don't like me, if I'm the worst one,
Download
let me know. We vote out one person on the podcast.
Yeah, so it's going to be
style.
3 episodes long.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. Thank you guys here for coming here today and talking board games with all of us. And we will catch you guys in, 2 weeks or so? We think we're going to do this every 2 weeks or so. But if you don't see us, just stay tuned.
Just say bi-weekly, because then people don't know if it's going to be twice a week or once every 2 weeks.
Oh, that means every 2 weeks.
It means
Not
both.
everybody.
Not everybody knows that.
Okay. Well, sometime soon we'll have another episode. All right. Thanks, everybody.